Hello, my name is Dr. Cheryl Burdette, and I wanted to share with you our functional medicine meeting, our Laboratory Mastery Series, and what it is we hope to accomplish in this. Many times as we are getting started in functional medicine, or as we are growing in functional medicine, we have the benefit and we have the ability to grow with it. That's one of the things I find so exciting about functional medicine is that we're never trapped in a box. We're always addressing the individual, which means that we're always looking at their uniqueness, what they bring to the story, and how that changes how we'll apply the research. We're never stuck in a box where there's one condition, one pathway, one outcome. We're always thinking about how to apply all that research to the individual that we're sitting with at that time. What that means is it brings a great amount of individuality. It brings a great amount of intellectual curiosity to every single patient we're able to work with. But at the same time, when we recognize that there's a multitude of processes behind any condition, it can often become confusing. And one of the key questions is where to start and which direction should I go? This is where I think lab testing really helps to fine-tune what we're doing for patient care. When we think about a process or we think about a diagnosis, whether or not that's depression or ALS or Parkinson's, what we know is there are many reasons why that can occur. And yes, we want to think about the diagnosis. Yes, we want to think about the research at hand, but we also want to think about why it's worse in that person and what process applies. So we're going to think about how inflammation affects our patient and how gut-based inflammation plays a role, the foods they're eating, diet and lifestyle. We're going to think about nutrition. We're going to think about oxidative stress and toxic body burden. And we're going to think about organ function like the adrenals or the thyroid or reproductive organs as they apply to each condition out there. But what we know is that some of these areas will apply more and some will apply less. But in every single individual, we need to consider all of the processes to figure out what is different about them, what's at root cause for that person. This is why lab testing can be so useful, because we can use our laboratory testing to understand, is this patient more in the leaky gut area? Is this patient more toxic? Does this patient have underlying metabolic issues? And so we can take all of that process and figure out how to apply it to this person, this patient, the N of 1. This is why laboratory testing becomes so useful, because it can take all of this wild intellectual curiosity, this biochemistry, all these pathways, and help us to understand which one is most pertinent for this patient at this time. In our series in part 1, we're going to break down things like a CBC, chem screen, things cardiometabolic, food sensitivities, and we're going to look at the intestinal barrier. By doing this, we're going to understand basic nutritional points. We're not going to just look at chem screens and CBCs for pathology, but we're going to dissect them. Where are they coming from? What cofactors are necessary in terms of increasing markers or decreasing markers? And how does this understand things not only in terms of pathology for the patient, but also nutritionally as well? We're going to look to see where they're metabolically sped up or slowed down, because this can affect not only energy levels or weight gain, but can affect things like histamine and clearing of cytokines and even keeping the immune system in balance. We're going to look at how to understand science around foods and what food someone is best reactive to, as well as what food is going to be hardest on that person, even if it's considered a healthy food. We're going to look at some of the immunology behind lectins and allergies and sensitivities and what we understand in terms of titers, a complement, and how all of these things work together. Finally, we're going to look at how much of inflammation in the body is gut-based, but how can really hone in on what to do for that person or how extreme it is. By understanding markers of intestinal function, by understanding direct markers of permeability, we can help rule in or rule out a very important process for the patient. After part 1, it's a 4-part series. We're going to then get into things like adrenals and hormones. We're going to look at various infections, and we're really going to dissect key testing out there and how it helps us to understand each patient better. This 4-part series will be offered in Dallas and Phoenix and at a number of different times, allowing you to capture it. So we looked at what we felt to be the most important laboratory tests in functional medicine and how they would apply to some of the most common conditions we see out there, but how they can really help us to understand more of the extreme situations as well. When you're trying to understand every person and their individuality, that's a lot of pathways in biochemistry. But a handful of core functional medicine tests, as well as some of the conventional markers, ChemScreens and CBCs, can really help us to understand the individuality of not just that pathology, Parkinson's or depression, but that person that we're working with. This is what we hope to accomplish in our Laboratory Master Series, how we can use these tests to understand each patient better and help get them well more quickly, get them back to optimal wellness.